Telltale are back with their first new game since 2018, but are they back with a bang, or should this once beloved developer have stayed a thing of the past? Let's take a look at The Expanse. Really could have done with a clean in here. Anyway, The Expanse, a Telltale series, is the returning gambit of this once beloved developer, and right now we have only one episode to go at. There will eventually be 5 plus a DLC episode. Now, I've played through that episode 3 times in its entirety to get a good grip of what's going on here, and there is a lot of good stuff, but also a couple of major stumbling blocks. So, let's get into it. And fair warning, I will try to avoid spoilers until later in the video, and I will give a clear warning when they're coming up, but in this kind of game, basically everything is a spoiler, so watch at your own peril. Okay, so first things first. I'm only vaguely familiar with The Expanse, having watched the first couple of series quite a long time ago at this stage, so I'm coming into the game fairly fresh. Now, good news for the game. Because of that, I'm not going to get pissed off if something doesn't make sense within the greater universe of The Expanse, or doesn't fit the character fully. Bad news, it's not going to get any points for fan service with me either. Now, this is a prequel to the TV series, and presumably the books, following Kamina Drummer, the XO on board the Artemis, a small ship of scavengers, effectively second in command, who's preparing for a big mission to go and scavenge the UNN Urshanabi. We're told that the Urshanabi is a great score, and what's on board will make us rich, thus setting up an interesting story in what I must say is a really beautiful world at times here. Our first task is to meet the crew, and for a game that's going to be so heavily focused on story and the characters, these crew members are going to be key to making this a good experience, and it's a bit of a mixed bag. While I quite enjoy, say, Maya Castillo, a fun-loving and feisty new crew member aboard the Artemis, and the twins Rayan and Arlen, with their sibling banter and fights, there's also characters like Khan, who is supposed to be a grouchy old woman who always tells it as it is, and that's the kind of character that sounds great on paper, but she ends up delivering some extremely cringy lines, all for the sake of always being miserable, always being grumpy.
Just don't touch anything! I'll be right there! As soon as Dr. Dipshit here is finished.
It just doesn't feel like a realistic character with any likability whatsoever. Hopefully, as the episodes come out, we'll get some more backstory for her and see a softer side, see the reason she's like this, with less moody teen energy coming to the forefront as her exterior begins to crack. But fortunately, our main character, the one we're going to be spending a heck of a lot of time with, Kamina Drummer, is one of the good ones. And the crew as a whole does a good job at giving you a sense of the world of The Expanse, as they're gathered from all parts of the solar system. Maya from the militaristic Mars, Arlen and Rayan from the exploited Belt, and Cox, the captain, from Earth. And the interaction between these characters gives you a solid introduction into some of the politics of this universe, as insults are thrown to the Inyas by the Belters and the Skinnies by Cox, letting you feel the tensions within the crew. Although, even with my limited experience of The Expanse, this is very surface level, and it's something I hope they dive deeper into in future episodes. As we go around meeting all of these characters for the first time, we also get a chance to explore the ship. But what could have been an awesome setting to peek into every nook and cranny of, ends up with the Artemis just being a plain, boring set of metal corridors that just feels like a museum or gallery, with the only interactivity being exhibits to look at and logs to read. These kinds of mechanics are fine, but as an addition to a real way of telling the story during exploration, not as the primary and only way outside of cutscenes. Unfortunately here, you can't find any of the other characters walking around the ship and performing their daily tasks, other than when you have to find them for a cutscene. I mean, sure, Virgil the Doctor and Khan stay put after you talk to them, but the other characters just disappear. Shouldn't they be getting ready for the mission? The Artemis doesn't feel like a working, living ship. It feels empty. Empty hallways, empty rooms, and things only moving forward when you say they should. And for a game with storytelling being at the heart of the experience, that isn't great. And during these first conversations with the crew, we see the good old-fashioned Telltale choice system. Except this time there's only 2 choices instead of 4. Well, going in, I wanted more choice in these games, not less. But it was never the number of dialogue options that was the issue with the old Telltale games. It was the fact that your choices rarely made much of a difference. So, has that changed here? No. No, it hasn't. Well, at least not in the first episode. Take our very first interaction with one of our crew when we're set free in the ship. We talk with Khan and immediately, she confronts us in her grouchy, cringy way about how we're just the captain's lackey. No matter which of the 2 options we choose here, the conversation ends the exact same way. Now, granted, this is a very minor discussion in the grand scheme of the game, but this conversation would definitely end differently in real life if, say, I'd just been joking around with someone I considered a friend, as opposed to threatening someone who'd insulted me. We wouldn't go back to just being exactly the same as if a conversation had never happened. And here we come to the big problem with Telltale Games, and not just this one either. It's rarely choice they offer. It's the illusion of choice. No matter what you do, who you side with, or even who you save, the game is going in very much the same direction. And when choice is your gameplay, and the choices don't matter, are you even a game anymore? Is this a game? Or is it just a story being played out? And hey, don't come to me saying the QuickTime events are gameplay. The QuickTime events are a joke here. As of episode 1, every QTE has just been left click or right click. And so far, failing them has either resulted in nothing being different at all, as in the scene on screen now, or an immediate failure state. And let me just add, it would be insanely difficult to fail these QTEs if you were trying even slightly. We do, however, get a little bit of exploration gameplay, which I enjoyed. It was one of the highlights for me. Checking out the Urshanabi in 0G, scavenging for parts and supplies, and having that little bit of freedom to not just be guided from one cutscene to another was pretty much the best part of the game. And we even get a side mission to retrieve a crystal for Virgil, which will hopefully have some gameplay implications later based on whether you did or didn't complete this quest. I do like the addition of side missions, although so far it is just side mission, singular. But overall, the main thing you're going to be doing is making choices. Binary choices at that. And those choices just don't feel impactful. Now, here is where we're going to get spoilerific. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, now's the time to turn off. But if you do want a quick summary before you go, so far, story pretty good, gameplay pretty bad. Alright? Still here? Good. So, there are a couple of choices in the game which seem like they could have a decent sized impact on things going forward. Not right now, not in episode 1, but potentially in future episodes. Number 1. You can choose to save one of the crew members' legs, but lose the cargo it's trapped under, effectively meaning your ship won't get important supplies. Or, you can keep the cargo and amputate his leg. You can imagine how that might annoy him a little bit down the road. Number 2. You can choose to vent Captain Cox out of the airlock after he betrays you and tries to kill you. Both of these choices do have the potential to change things in future episodes, as they can easily change the crew's view of Drummer, and maybe, as Cox says, he'll be important to us later, and if we get rid of him, we won't know what we're doing.
You'll be glad I'm still here when the time comes.
But, like I said, we haven't seen the impact of these choices yet, and no matter what you choose to do throughout the episode, you get to roughly the same place. And do you know why? Because they went with one of the worst storytelling techniques they possibly could have in a game where your choices are supposed to matter. They made the first episode a flashback to 8 hours earlier.
What?
The first thing they do in the entire game is show us the end of the episode, effectively saying, No matter what you do, you will end up here. Now, I know it takes a hell of a lot of work to make a game with loads of branching paths, and if you do make a choice-based game the right way, having those branching paths, the player probably won't see 90% of what you've worked on in their first playthrough. But that's how you make choices matter. Remember that big flowchart thing from Detroit Become Human? Well, that game was far from perfect, but that flowchart looks more like this for Telltale's Expanse. Even way back in 2015, Until Dawn had figured out how to make this sort of system work far better than what we have here. Did they do it perfectly? God no. But they were so much closer than this. Wouldn't it have been better if, since we're in charge of the mission, we could have somehow prevented the accident that led to Ryan's leg becoming trapped? Or maybe if through our conversations with them and our actions we lost the trust of the crew, they could turn on us at the end and side with Cox. It doesn't have to be an easy or a likely outcome, but these sorts of meaningful consequences to our choices would give this game so much more impact and save it from feeling like just a linear path. However, the story does go some way to saving the experience. The Urshanabi we're sent to scavenge has been hit by brutal pirates, who were clearly searching for something important, and have decapitated any crew members they could find, creating a dark and oppressive atmosphere aboard the ship as you explore. Constant calls back to the Artemis and chats with the scavenging team allow for world building about what's been going on here and the situation we find ourselves in. And what we eventually find, a data cache, leads to some unspecified treasure that Cox is willing to kill Drummer for, by luring her out to the thrusters and firing them, just so that he doesn't have to share it with her. Not to mention that during our confrontation with him, after surviving the attempted murder, he drops a hint that Virgil isn't who he says he is. It all makes for a really gripping story with plenty of intrigue to keep me playing through the upcoming episodes. And that's the thing. For all my complaints here, I like this game. I will continue to play, but it's carried almost entirely by the story. Now, you could say that's what a Telltale game is supposed to be. That's what they always were. But for me, I wanted to see a move forward, an innovation from the games they were making a decade ago. And Telltale's Expanse isn't that. Now, it is entirely possible that the future episodes will have branching paths and prove that your choices matter. But from the evidence in episode 1, we just can't say that, because I've played this episode in its entirety 3 times now, making as many different decisions as possible, and right now the only differences to be seen are one character potentially has a prosthetic leg, and the captain is either locked up or dead. Incapacitated either way. The same events, conversations and interactions happen along the way, and no matter what you do, you will be betrayed by Cox, and the crew will side with you, even if you've treated them terribly. So, do I recommend The Expanse, a Telltale series? Well, actually kind of yes, but you have to know what you're getting into. If you're looking for an intriguing story set in a really awesome universe, then it's an easy recommendation. If, however, you're looking for a game, rather than just something you could watch a YouTube playthrough of and get 90% of the same experience, it's a harder sell. I personally will keep playing through the rest of the episodes because I am enjoying the story. But if Telltale are back for good, and I sincerely hope they are, I'm hoping to see some genuine innovation in their games going forward. I want huge branching flowcharts of potential choices and their ramifications, and actual gameplay sequences in between your choices, be it combat, stealth, puzzling, or whatever. This formula they've been using for over a decade at this point, unsurprisingly, feels outdated.